That's where I have to start. Let's return to the note, but on a serious note. You think that technology has a lot of room to grow in Q4 and may even move an additional 10%. What is the trigger? We've been to Asia twice in the past 6 weeks, you know. Even if the godfather of AI, Jensen, at NVIDIA is at the forefront, the second, third, and fourth derivatives are only now beginning to take shape in terms of AI because demand is outpacing supply by a factor of 15. That, in my opinion, will be the driving force behind tech stocks rising by more than 10% this year and 20% the following year. The AI party, which doesn't end until 4 o'clock a.m., is still, I believe, at 9 o'clock p.m. What makes 4 a.m. the end of the party? I mean, every time you use this metaphor, it makes me laugh. On a more serious note, though, you claim that rising demand is what will propel the tech industry to grow by 10% in Q4. What specifically are you demanding regarding chatbots? For chips? What exactly is the spark in this situation? Demand over supply is 15 to 1 if I look at chip demand. In light of this, businesses are lining up in anticipation of the AI revolution. Palantir, the Messi of AI, is at the forefront of the software and application cases, which we are only now beginning to witness. Take a look at companies like Oracle, Salesforce, and ServiceNow, which I support. According to me, the Ives industry will see $1 trillion in AI capital expenditures in the next 2 to 3 years. A few weeks back, I had an interview with Alex Karp. We discussed you in a few of your notes. He's a tremendous fan, a true fan. I would like to continue reading your note. It claims that the tech industry spends $8 to $10 for every dollar invested on NVIDIA chips. I want to delve deeper into that. Is it related to AI capabilities or the tech industry? Because utilities have their best quarter since 2003, as we just said. Is this expenditure mostly on physical infrastructure, or is it also considered tech spending? Yes, I do believe that software infrastructure will account for 8 to 10. You mentioned the energy component, which supports our belief that the multiplier is now at play and that it's not just about NVIDIA or Microsoft. As a result, I believe that the biggest driver of the tech industry over the next 12 to 18 months will be an increase in numbers, namely in the software sector, of 15 to 20%. And I believe that's the reason why many of the bears who are still hibernating in those caves come out to discuss valuation. This tech bull market is still in the second inning, in my opinion, because the street is underestimating growth. But Dan, I have to be fair. To be fair, you're usually optimistic because you're one of the greatest bulls in tech generally. Let's simply discuss scale, though. Over the many years that we have spoken, there may have been occasions when you were cautious or saw some danger. However, from a basic standpoint, we are currently witnessing it, not only in Asia but also globally. Businesses are lining up, and I believe that's why it's about the future technological phases as they relate to the AI revolution. Okay, so I want to discuss 2 distinct ETFs, the CIB, cybersecurity, and the IGV, software ETF. When I speak with investors, many of them say, look at those. Will the tech industry experience the gains you mentioned in these 2 areas? Yes, I believe that's very important because use cases are about software, not simply brands like Palantir and others, ServiceNow and Salesforce. Examine names such as Adobe and others. After that, you consider how to safeguard that, cybersecurity. Names like Scalar and CrowdStrike, a 1995 tech moment that is nearly 1996, but not a 1999 bubble moment, come to mind. Thus, IGV and CIB have both increased by roughly 10% so far this year. If you believe that technology will increase by another 10%, where do they end the year? How about these 2 locations in particular? 15% to 20%. Given the facts, I believe that these are certain regions where you have a large parabolic run into the end of the year. So the tech sector is up 10%, while the 2 are up another 5%? Well, I believe that what you will actually witness is the Magnificent 7 huge techs maintaining their lead in the left lane at 90 miles per hour. Unprecedented incentives from Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and other U.S. carriers. Just because the moment is right, that is to say, when you consider 5G, its release, and now effectively AI, This is going to be the big chance for carrier reductions and the beginning. The consumer AI revolution that will truly take place in Cupertino is what you mean when you talk about maturity on a smartphone cycle. We believe that is how we end up with a $4 trillion market capitalization at the beginning of next year. Can you provide us with an updated list of all the parts on Apple? In my opinion, the services are worth $1.7 trillion. When you add together all the components, you have roughly $100 billion in revenue, increasing mid-teens, free cash on margins, and double the hardware industry. When altogether, it exceeds $4 trillion. In my opinion, the bull case will ultimately cost more than $300. Okay, pay attention. There are only 20 slots available, so this is a unique opportunity for you to tour the CNBC studios. I'll also give you a brief one-on-one conversation to talk about your financial future. The event is scheduled for October 10th, so make sure you secure your space before it sells out. And with that, we have our talk of the tape. To what extent can stocks increase? Let's invite CNBC contributor and Fundstrat Research Chief Tom Lee to join us live at Post 9. Good to see you. Scott, it's great to see you. With the exception of one day last Thursday, the market hasn't really moved much since the Fed's big cut. Why? In my opinion, the Fed's decision to start an easing cycle will be beneficial. 3 months out, we know it's actually historically positive. However, stock's performance during the following month is somewhat erratic. I believe that's what we're witnessing as a result of some realignment. In addition, we are now considering the election's 40 days. Does the ideal situation for stocks to receive a post-Fed boost get ruined by the election, which is just 40 days away? I believe it slows it because many wealth managers and family offices I've spoken to at conferences don't want to commit capital until after Election Day. They simply want to move past that incident, regardless of the outcome. Oh, so you believe that once Election Day is over, we will have a race to the finish? Yes, and that is rather common. The rallies in November and December are actually rather amazing during election years. There are also significant rallies in November and December when markets are up above 10% in the first half, choppy through September in a way. Do you believe that investors are convinced that the Fed will succeed and that this economy will survive? Does anything we've seen since Fed Day raise questions about the broader picture? Everything is going okay so far. Hopefully, this Friday's core PCE will demonstrate that inflation is no longer a top priority. However, one thing I've observed is that a significant portion of professional money managers and investors believe that we are already in a recession. Therefore, I believe that those opinions will return to a gentle landing. The data simply turns out to be better than anticipated. Well, the S&P has recently set targets. Since Brian Belsky is the most current to boost his target to the highest on the street, I keep bringing him up. You haven't sounded like you would be upping your personal aim to that extent when I've asked you about the market recently. Would you? In my opinion, there is a lot of potential for growth in the next 3 to 6 months. However, given that we've already made a significant increase and that values aren't on the cheap end, I believe it's more difficult to make the tactical argument that we need to pin a 6,000 target and then put money to work today. I'm not saying I'm pessimistic at the moment, but I feel much more confident in stating that things will be appealing in 3 to 6 months. You mean things like margin debt? In fact, it fell in August, indicating that investors have been reducing their leverage. During the past 4 months, when markets are rising, it hasn't moved. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that it would have been more accurate to simply state that you don't sound as bullish as you usually do. Is that reasonable? Although I'm still optimistic about the year-end, I'm a little less sure about how the markets will act today. I don't think there will be a significant